Welcome back to the show. Um, Tonight, we're going to be chatting about a Kickstarter that just launched. And with me is Ted Sikora, and it's Vaude-Villains. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was Punchline and the Vaude-Villains versus Violante. It's a long
All
name.
righty. Well, before we get into that, because and I looked at the campaign page and it looks very interesting. So I definitely can't
Appreciate
wait
it.
to get into that. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit about your history as a reader of comic books and creator.
Sure. Reading kind of all my life. My sort of origin story is I used to love the 60s Spider-Man show. I mean in the 70s. And so I was a huge Spidey fan, and we went to visit some friends out of state, and they actually owned a drugstore, and they knew I liked Spider-Man. And I guess back then when comics didn't sell, they just had to rip the covers off and send those in for credit, and they got to keep the book. So they gave me all these coverless books, and I'm driving home as like a 5, 6 year old reading The Death of Gwen Stacy. And I was just like, oh my God, this is much different than the cartoon. And Spidey was furious and pissed, and it was just like so interesting. And I just, yeah, I was dropped right in right there. So, how did I? I'm sorry. What was the second part of your question?
Uh, so, given that, what made you want to start creating your own?
Yeah, I think all through high school, I really wanted to be a comic book artist, and so I would draw. I loved Moon Knight back then. Doug mentioned Bill Sienkiewicz's Moon Knight, so I was drawing my own Moon Knight comics and things, and created my own character then. And the advice I got was, it's very hard to make a living in comics, so you're good with math, so why don't you get a degree in like accounting or something? And so I started that, and I didn't like it, and then switched to like advertising. And all the while I was playing guitar, I was in bands. This will all come around to comics, but it is a bit of a windy path. I was in bands and wrote a concept rock album called Nothing Like Vaudeville. And it was about this runaway freak in the 1920s that gets kind of courted by this ringmaster, but he's running into all these vaudevillains. One of them being Sir Terror, the mob boss, Fletcher, this necrophiliac wax museum curator, and then the tap dance killer. So this was back in the mid '90s, but we staged. We ended up kind of breaking up the band and turning the whole thing into a 2 act musical. We rented out a theater to do this. We had no theater background, and then got Original Cast Records, picked up the recording of it, and I was really into writing musicals. But my friend Milo Miller and I, um, we met in college and big film fans, and we decided to make a movie. We wrote a film called Hero Tomorrow. It's a dark comedy about a guy who has an idea to create his own superhero. And his idea is based on the premise that so many superheroes are creature themed, but all the great creatures have been taken, like spiders, bats, and Wolverine. So he makes up an animal that's so powerful yet stealth it was never discovered by mankind and calls that the Apama. So part of the humor of the movie is him trying to sell this superhero based on an animal that doesn't exist. But the movie, it's debuted at San Diego Comic Con, played film festivals, and along the way, it was Tony Isabella really who said, there's really nothing like this Apama in comics. You ought to think about it. And we thought, well, we don't want to do an adaptation of the movie, but what if we just did the book that was in the main character's head? And then I think I do have a visual aid here. Yeah, we did Apama, the undiscovered animal. So this is the story our character in the movie would have published. We just did a digital issue on our website. And a couple things happened. It got really great reviews, and we found out how much we loved making comics. So we didn't really plan to build a universe or anything. We were just going to do this one issue, but there were no villains. It was just an origin story. And then issue 2, we brought in the first villain. Issue 3, the next. Issue 5, we brought in the nemesis of the series based on the fact that in issue 5 of the Fantastic Four, that's when they brought in Doctor Doom. So there's this loose following of sort of like the Amazing Spider-Man, really, of just bringing in a rogues gallery character for the first 20 issues. And yeah, there's a long answer to a quick question. I'm sorry.
No, hey, long answers are great. That's less talking I have to do. So tell us about the current campaign and Vaude-Villains, and this is a long title.
Yes, yeah. Well, so in Apama 10 and 11, oh, I said I was going to come back to the musical. I started doing a lot of film work too. So I was hired to do a documentary about Near West Theater in Cleveland. They were moving, they'd been around for 35 years, but they were moving right across the street from the actual physical building Apama lives in Cleveland because we use real locations. And I thought, man, what if we could do something with this theater group? Like maybe this flirty woman invites him to come audition because he's tired of getting his ass kicked. So as a superhero, maybe just do something fun. So that was Nikki St. Clair. They're putting on Nothing Like Vaudeville, and she gets cast as the tap dance killer. So images of our tap dance killer were being liked and shared really by the thousands by a lot of people who didn't even know who she was. Let me see, I can find her here. And there's Nikki. And so this became our all-time bestseller, but it was in the first issue of Tap Dance Killer back in 2018 that we debuted Drayton Hayes. He's a heavyweight boxer, becomes this clown assassin named Punchline. And right here, you actually see Fletcher. He's important for this new book as well. And this is Sir Terror, the mob boss. So Fletcher, he has a girlfriend who is ailing, and he finds out about a mystic healer in Mexico named Violante. He goes to see Violante. He doesn't bring his girlfriend with him, but she agrees to help him, puts him in a trance where he's talking to these spirits about how to enhance human DNA. When he gets what he wants, these formulas about he betrays her because he wants it for himself, shoots her dead. So it's not so easy to kill a mystic healer, and now Violante the Undead has returned for vengeance against all the Vaude-Villains. The rest of the team knows nothing about them, so nothing about her. So Punchline in the Vaude-Villains versus Violante. That is where we are. That's the new issue. It's a #1, and this is our current campaign. About 75% funded right now.
Yeah. So, well, you've pretty much hit all my questions I usually ask. Inspiration. You're a very good salesman.
Well, the thing is, I pitch. I do a lot of cons, so you get used to just doing the pitch.
So, do you have a favorite, character that you've, because you write and you do the coloring, correct?
Yeah. And at first the coloring, I don't know. I think I was a little too much of a control freak because I do film work, and I did have an art background and I designed the characters, but I don't have, I'm way too slow to do a book, and I also think the way I work, it's better to really work with someone, So coloring is a nice way to just sort of set that final mood, that final tone. Yeah, and I've gotten more comfortable with it. I mean, it used to take me a long time to do a page, and now I can probably, in a night I'll usually get a page done.
So, who's the artist who's on the book, and how did you get connected with them?
Yvel Gachet. Yeah, and this is the previous issue, but he's super dynamic. Let me find a nice page here. So this is like Violante. Well, actually, I'll take you through her sort of awakening. Um, so there's a curse on Fletcher, that character. So she, obviously she was, I said she was killed, but she was suspended by the same sort of method that Fletcher learned because she had an assistant. I won't get into all that, but she awakens and her body's like rock hard, sort of her skin, but she remembers being shot, but she doesn't remember who she is. And she sees this picture and she's like, maybe this is who I am. And she starts trying to put herself back together. And she's colorblind, so she doesn't get the face, the skull white. It's purple here. And then she's sort of infested with demons, and they just kind of lift her out. So now she's on her way. But yeah, I mean, there's a shot of most of our stuff takes place in Cleveland, but that's Pittsburgh right there,
Yeah.
Liberty Avenue. So yeah,
And
Yavel's he's
my family,
amazing.
I had family that used to live in Cleveland, so I'm very familiar with.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and the first two issues were done by Donny Hadiwijawa, and but it's Yavel who's on the new one, and we just have a great rapport. We do layouts together, so he'll send layouts. I take those right into Adobe Illustrator. I put the letters in immediately on these super rough layouts, and if it works, it goes right back. Or if I have some revisions, I'll grab little movable figures sometimes and just put them in poses. And but it basically he gets back a perfectly sized page that he can just start doing a new layer digitally on top of whatever I give him. And on the writing side, I find that really helpful because I get a bunch of takes on it. I'm constantly rewriting my script.
I was going to ask you how has your film background, you know, influenced your comic writing, and also kind
Oh,
of the vice versa? Has your comic book writing influenced, your other creative work?
yeah, they go back and forth. It's been really kind of fun because I can try things when I'm coloring, maybe a hard, back edge that's really hard yellow light or something, maybe the blue light from here. And then I can try that when we're shooting an interview or something. I can, so these things definitely just feed into each other all the time. And even when we made Hero Tomorrow, like I spent an entire year storyboarding. Like it was 1,500 images, and that was very comic book like. It was 3 panels a page, and it kind of gave me the confidence to know that we could make this movie because we had this big stack of storyboards. And so let people know too who came to be involved with the film how serious we were.
And how do you feel that you've kind of talked about your coloring journey? How about your writing journey? How have you grown, from, your
Yeah.
first writing experience, comic writing experience to, today?
Yeah, I wish I could say that I feel more proficient. I it's kind of like my process is so weird. It's really so weird that I don't even sometimes feel comfortable calling myself a writer because to me, a writer can hand an artist a script and it is good to go. Okay.
Mhm.
But what my process now, I do write a script, but as I told you, it comes back. And when I put it back into Illustrator, the rough layouts, I rewrite that page sometimes. I redesign the page and then it goes back. And it's no fault of the artist. I just now that I see what it could be or what can make the story better, it is such a fluid back and forth thing. So, I think I've said before, I feel, you know, I don't feel like I should call myself a writer, A, because I can't do that, but B, I'm doing a whole lot more than a writer, when so it's sort of whatever. Comic book creator is a title I think fits me maybe better.
Hey, so let's kind of talk about this campaign specifically. What are you offering, for potential backers, to
Sure.
help with the project?
Yeah. Well, obviously we have the new issue and we are nationally distributed. We've been with Diamond since we began comics, but when they went under, we were without a distributor. So this is our first release in 2 years. And we're with Asylum Press now, and Frank Forte, great dude. I've known him forever and kind of uh, twisted his arm to, because I was talking to a lot of other publishers to take us on, and the deals basically it's tough because you've got maybe like Lunar, who's a great distributor, but then you're going to be with a publisher who's under Lunar. They're taking their piece. Lunar gets their piece, and then you're getting a piece of a piece of a piece. So with Frank, he understood too that I already I'm I'm taking care of the printing of my books, the production, all of that. So it's hopefully I can add some value to Asylum as well as what they're bringing to me. But it's been really good. So having said that, what are we offering on the Kickstarter? Um, we have the new issue. We've got variant covers, and I didn't go overboard with variant covers this time. This issue, because it's been 2 years, we loaded it up. So it's 48 pages, and there's 34 new story pages. But then that whole thing I told you about with Violante, we've reprinted that because I wanted this to be a good entry point for anybody. So you get that. You get the origin of another character who, Hurricane Lizzie, she's also part of this. And so it's a very simple entry point and, a refresher for our longtime readers who haven't seen anything from us in 2 years. And for the people who've proofread it, they're like, oh, thank you for putting that in because it has been a while. And some of these little tangents that have finally come together, uh, that was helpful. So beyond that, I used to offer, and we took it away for a long time because I got so backlogged, but you can be drawn into a future story. So that's in there. We're going to be doing a lot more with our character Regina. So she's like this trippy psychedelic prophet. Bloom is her origin story. That's Regina there. And so she has a cult. And so there's going to be a lot of places for people to be cult members and that kind of thing in future stories. I'll do CGC, signature series. There's that version. There's a metal cover, but this one, it's kind of stripped down compared to other ones because I really do want people to just get into that story. The new number one. You can go back as far as you want. You could do all 25 issues in our universe, or add any number of things. Everything's available.
So this obviously isn't your first time on Kickstarter, but are you noticing, anything different, or were there lessons that you've learned in the past that you're applying to this campaign?
Um, yeah, I've done about, I think this is 13, and they're they're a mixed bag. It's so different than just creating a book and putting it with a distributor and moving on. All that time you might be spending working on your next story, you really have to work the campaign for the month. So that never, that doesn't change. But it's a real blessing to be able to sell directly to people, to have an interaction with the fan base, with readers that are, or maybe even just trying you out. So I kind of love that about it. Uh,
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. Did I get off the track of your question? What was?
I think you. I think it was. you know, a good one.
Okay.
Okay. So I know you said that you, it sounds like you do a lot of conventions. Are, how have the fans or, people that you've met at conventions received the book or your books?
Yeah, I'm happy to say it's gone pretty good. We've I don't know, we do a lot of, most of the major ones. New York, San Diego. I usually do Baltimore, though I'm not there this year, but I'll be at Awesome Con, not Awesome Con, Terrific Con this year. Yeah, I know it's tough to stay profitable doing some of these shows because like I did the C2E2 last year and the booth alone was like $1,800 for a corner. So, you gotta be able to move a lot of books to get into the green, into the black. So, it's gone well. I haven't lost money at a show in years.
Oh, I didn't know you said you did New York because I probably walked by and just didn't even know.
Yeah, I'll be there this year as well. It's a
No.
small press and I got a corner on the main aisle. I've had it forever.
Mm, nice. So I'll definitely have to stop by and say
Yeah,
hello and
please.
meet you in person. But so anything else about the campaign or the book that you may want to make sure that people know that maybe we didn't talk about?
I think not necessarily, I will say this, like we've had a lot of great I don't know how to say this without sounding sort of like egotistical, but we've had a lot of great reviews from people who are legends. Like Jim Shooter sent me a note and said Tap Dance Killer was like finding water in the desert. Jim Salicrup, he wrote a really nice, review for us. And, we had Roy Thomas write our forward for Apama. So if you're a fan of, especially the Bronze Age, like that's what we
Mhm.
cut our teeth on. We love that stuff, but we did it in a modern way. So if comics had sort of evolved differently, that's kind of what Hero Tomorrow is aimed to be. And with our universe, you know, you're not trying to catch up with 70 years of history. We make every book a very easy entry point, and these characters, they're not versions of characters that you've seen, maybe, a type. We really wouldn't do a book if we didn't feel like we could make a new kind of character every time. So, yeah, I would just say if, just go into it with that kind of mindset, maybe jump in anywhere and, just enjoy the trip.
So are there any writers from any medium that really influenced and challenged you as a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
creator?
I'm a big, so I've talked about how much I love the Lee Ditko introduction to Spider-Man and then Ramita. I just love I've Amazing Spider-Man all the way up to like, 150 or something. I mean, that they're just it's all so good. Um, but outside of comics, like you know, Alejandro Jodorowsky, but he's also in comics, but he does comics and film. But David Lynch, I love David Lynch. So what I aim for is that the world is very grounded, and then that gives us room to really add some wild, fantastic stuff. But it's not all wild and fantastic where you don't feel like you have a footing. So
Mhm.
one is it's like, for instance, super important, like right when we started Apama, like just the neighborhoods. I'll show you here. It's very much real Cleveland, and even if people aren't from Cleveland, we get notes all the time that they just kind of they believe the world, and that's one of our mantras.
Alrighty. Well, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, and
Yeah, same.
yeah,
Thank you for having me.
thank you. I'm glad we were able to connect on the Book of Faces, and
Right.
but well, as we kind of close out, if you want to give one last pitch for the campaign and where people can find you if you are brave enough to be on social media these days.
Oh yeah. So Hero Tomorrow is the name of our company. It's named after our film. Hero Tomorrow Comics is really named. But social medias are Hero Tomorrow. So on Instagram, I'm Ted Sikora on Instagram or Facebook. And our website, herotomorrow.com. And if you go to Kickstarter and just type in Punchline, it should come right up. But we have a link anywhere, on any of our social medias. That's where you'll find it.
All right, and you can also we'll also be able to find a link to the Kickstarter over on Comic Watch at our on our weekly comic book crowdfunding roundup, which goes live every Saturday. I have started posting the interviews with creators on Sunday at noon, so we'll be sure to follow you there and help you get the word out. And good luck on the campaign. And I hopefully look forward to meeting you at New York Comic Con this year.
That sounds great. And thank you for giving, creators a vehicle to let people know about their projects.
And you're welcome anytime to come back when you have something else that you'd like to talk about.
Thank you, Chad.
All right. Well, you have a great evening.
You too, bud.